Hi.
Hello.
Could you tell us a little bit about your company, what you're doing, present yourself for our spectators, okay?
Yeah, absolutely. So the name of our company is called WigWag, WigWag.com. You can find us there. And we make a platform for smart homes that is very competitive with something like SmartThings or Wink, but we make an entirely open source platform. And it's based on Device.js, which is our software runtime. And Device.js is itself based on Node.js. So if you're into Node.js and you know JavaScript, and you know how to build, say, a JavaScript web application, then now you can start programming and make something that controls lights, deals with sensors, deals with all kinds of different smart home equipment, things you can buy today, and you could build that in Device.js. And so apps that are built for WigWag, we can build apps on top of our platform, and those apps are built in Device.js. So we would kind of encourage people to check out wigwag.com and also devicejs.org as that open source product is released. And so you should start seeing our stuff in channels in about the next 2 to 3 months. And you can also run Device.js on your Raspberry Pi. You can run Device.js on probably a number of other different home routers, and you'll be able to download that and run it yourself, not have to buy a thing if you want to. Sure. So IoT is really busy. It's also very fragmented, so it means it has a lot of different, protocols, a lot of different standards, brands, and they're not compatible with each other. And so that's one of the things we're trying to solve, but it is a hard problem. What do you see out there is you see like these kind of single vertical platforms that are really popular. So Nest, you're probably familiar with Nest. Very expensive. It's a very beautiful product though. For instance, there's devices that are much cheaper, such as the Belkin Wemo devices that are probably available. I think they are available in Europe and Russia. And then there's a lot of other devices that are out there that are very similar to these products. But what's interesting about all these products is they all use different APIs. So the problem is, you basically have to download their app and control their device with their app. And what that makes it hard to do is build entirely automated environments. So if I want to buy lights and put them all in this room and sensors and put them all in this room and tie them all together and not be stuck using one vendor's thing, right, and use the cheapest product that's available at the time, then it's really hard to do that today. That's the whole problem. I mean, it's just it's continuous, somebody goes and everybody today is doing this entire vertical solution on their own. So they go and they build a widget, and that widget talks to their little box, and their little box talks to the cloud or whatever the case is. And those APIs are not entirely standardized. Now, efforts like AllJoin and efforts like OIC, Open Interconnect Consortium, we're members of both of them, or things like Thread, they're trying to do some kind of standardization, either at layer 3 or up from that. But the problem is, it's going to take the industry a long time, and a lot of those different entities are very much competing with each other, and so they aren't going to all come together in the near future because there's a lot of market share and money to be lost there. So.
And as I say, there are a lot of money to gain there, right?
Oh heck yeah! We're talking probably about a boom in IoT eventually. It's not going to happen overnight. That will be bigger than anything that ever has happened really in computing.
Could you give a rough estimate in dollars, say?
I mean, it's very hard because there's a lot of markets involved in that. But I can tell you this much: so Gartner Research has done a lot on this in terms of measuring the amount of devices. And for instance, we know that in homes we're kind of going from about 5 devices in your home that talk to the internet today. This is in 2014 to about in 2022 being about 500 devices in a home that talk to the internet. So we're talking about 1,000% multiple on that, and then you can just wrap the dollar figures around that. But I mean, it's simply massive. So and everything that would benefit at all from any kind of connectivity. So you can look around the environment you're standing in, and you can think of things. It's going to be everything from lighting to signs to that exit sign to doors to sensors knowing where people are to structural integrity in a building. Sensors that last maybe just a year or two to sensors that might be permanently embedded in rebar and last generation. Everybody can take sensors to the utmost extreme, and you have to. No one's going to stick a sensor on anything unless there's an immediate benefit, right? Unless there's a business reason to do that. But I have heard of a lot of things in bars, just to take that as an example, that have to do with measurement of alcohol. So in American bars, people pour a lot of shots. And the problem with the pouring of the shots is a lot of times bartenders, maybe pour their friends a few extra shots or a heavy pour. And so all those kind of things can go into measurement of the bar to try to get an idea of loss. And so there's a real reason to put sensors on a bottle, right? But I think the more interesting stuff is really probably stuff we haven't even thought of yet, because we haven't thought about the fact that the sensor technology can get that small or that cheap. And think about a farm. Think about the possibility to every year when you spread fertilizer into the farm, you also spread a few million sensors, and those sensors cost almost nothing each, and you put those sensors out, and the reason you're going to spend, say, $10,000 on those sensors every year is because they're going to increase your yield 3, 4, 5% every year because of the extra information you get from that. And so that's the possibilities in IoT that are further out, but that what we're talking about, right? I think it's fine as long as there's some kind of structure around who's doing it and people are transparent about what data they're taking and what they're doing with it. Personally, it would worry me a little bit, but of course I'm in the industry, so I have a little maybe more understanding of what's going on with that data. But there's definitely, as that industry grows up and as all those devices start getting more and more data and doing more with it, there's going to have to be, some kind of guidelines around what is considered okay for people to take in data and use, and what is considered not, and how people share that data and use it internally in both companies and if they can share it with other people. So in the US, a lot of things have already come up here in regulation concerning, well, should a wearable that maybe measures my health to some extent be able to be used by a health insurer? And we don't know the answers to these things yet, because there's no regulation here around that completely. IoT hacking is an issue, and sometimes it's innocuous, so if someone hacks your light bulb, really, what does that mean? Nothing. But then at the flip side is, you probably have been reading about the recent cases of some research that was done on hacking into automobiles. Yeah, sure, there's been a lot of research and, kind of white hat, black hat research around that, but you're right. There hasn't been any real actual cases where it could be damaging, but I think, the point of security research like that is to find it before it becomes a big issue, right? I think based on the amount of electric automobiles you're going to get out there, you will have a definite increase in the risk of that. Typically cars were closed systems, right? So all the buses and things like that are in vehicles today are in the most common vehicles are closed systems, and so you can't really get into them at all externally. And now when you start talking about self-driving vehicles, you have to have open systems, that meaning open that they can talk to other devices if you want them to work well. And so there will definitely be a lot of opportunity for that. Most of the time, the connectivity in today's vehicles has to do with the AV, audiovisual stuff. It might have to do with the nav, but it maybe doesn't have to do with mission critical things in the vehicle like brakes and what have you. But that's slowly, well, it's really not slowly, it's quickly changing. But I guess my point in all this is that is a risk, but you also have to ask yourself, is that as big a risk as stuff that's already online today? It's possible. Look at Bitcoin. So who was it? One of the large Bitcoin exchanges got hacked into and destroyed a massive amount of value, close to $1 billion, and that was very damaging for a lot of those people. So you got to say, well, was that more damaging than, say, one vehicle getting hacked into? It's hard to say, but if a life is life, and that's certainly a lot different than just money. But the flip side is, my point is, I think there's a lot of services out there that could cause an immense amount of damage, not even just financially, but also, utilities, traffic control systems. There's a ton of things out there that can be a risk. Maybe. Large companies, really large companies that are operating, public services for millions of people are every bit as important, perhaps, as some government-operated systems as well. Someone hacking into, say, Gmail and stealing a bunch of stuff would be every bit as economically damaging as, say, someone getting into certain parts of the U.S. federal government's State Department information, right? So you can't, when you're measuring on an economy, you can't measure it just by, well, as long as we protect the government stuff, we're okay. No, we really have to protect everything that keeps our economy moving. And so, services such as Google are multinational, international services, and large events like that could do something damaging across the globe would be tremendous. So we are interested in both markets, and we have an entity in China that serves for a number of different purposes for us. But yes, it's a massive market, and what we're focused on to begin with, though, is smart home and smart home related technology. And that's what we're going to be worrying about for the next couple of years. It really depends on where your price points are and the products and the services you're making. I would say a critical market for us is the EU. We're certainly interested. Our own backers that we already have on Kickstarter, we have a lot of interest in, Germany, United Kingdom, France. We do have Russian backers. It's the larger economies, but the thing you have to bear in mind is it's difficult for an American startup this is a lot of times, a lot of people experience this, I know in Europe and Russia for that matter. It's difficult for an American startup to get their products quickly into those countries, and that has to do with a lot of regulation and complication that has to do with different countries having different requirements. And I can't say how that'll ever change in the near future, but I will say that that is damaging to the economies of those countries, unfortunately, and it's damaging to their consumers too. And hopefully someday the EU is able to open up their agreements and get a lot of unilateral agreements across these countries that allow importers such as us to get our products into those markets easier. Sure, so there's a lot of commonalities between some of the appliances in the Russian market and the Chinese market, and we're very interested in the Chinese market as well. So it'd probably be a pretty interesting market for us to get into, and it's a very large market, so we're very interested in it from that regard. The problem with us and our own personal issue in trying to get into the Russian market is we're just not super familiar with it. And one other thing that happened is last night, Judy Cho is a congressman for Washington State, Asian American congressman. She brought up the fact that economic trade between countries is one of the great ways that you can ensure peace between countries, and so I think that's one of the things that everyone in the world could benefit from. So unfortunately, I don't know Russian. My mother did speak Russian, though.
Is she Russian?
No, she was not. She's an unusual animal in that she's an American that can speak some Russian, but I would say to Russians doing entrepreneur stuff that I wish them the best, and I think that they should try to come to the United States and also be a part of Silicon Valley. And we also need to do things that help Silicon Valley and Russian entrepreneurs and Russian technologists get more access into the market here. So,
thank you very much. Please repeat your name, your company, and what you're doing, and say goodbye.
Okay. It's Ed Hemphill, and the name of the company is WigWag. And goodbye. And what is thank you? Спасибо?
Спасибо и до свидания.
What's the second word?
Спасибо, до свидания.
До свидания.
It's thank you and goodbye.
Oh, yeah. Спасибо, до свидания.
Okay, try it again. До свидания.
Спасибо, до свидания.
Excellent.